Alright guys, Fuller coming to you with another video. Shout outs to the whole LDBC. So in this video, man, I kind of just wanted to talk about something that, I really, normally don't talk about, I guess you can say I think the word is multifaceted. And, you know, for those of you guys who don't know, I'm a big anime head. Like, I like a lot of animes. Like, when I was coming up, especially when I was younger, I didn't just limit myself to Dragon Ball Z. I didn't just limit myself to, Pokemon. I had, there was this one called Tekka Man that used to come on a lot. There was Guyver. There was Neo Genesis Evangelion. There was Baki the Grappler. Because I box, there's Hajime no Ippo. There's Hakuto no Ken. There's a lot of anime, There's many of them that I can just keep on naming and naming. But anyhow, I wanted to talk about one and its relevance today in like what we're going through and what lessons can be taken from it, Now many people will say that, they don't get, for the sake of the accent, I mean the real name is Akira, but for the sake of like just the listening public, I'm just gonna say Akira. People don't, like many people, I want to say, said that, oh, they don't get Akira. They said, oh, it's a tricky anime. Oh, it's hard to get and stuff like that, And I can understand where they're coming from somewhat, but if you just watch it intensely, you'll get it, You'll get what was trying to be said in the movie, basically. Just a little brief thing for those who haven't seen that movie. Akira is basically set in the future and of Neo Tokyo, and big bombs dropped on Tokyo, and so they were just trying to rebuild their society. So it's kind of parallel to what happened with the two Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings that were perpetuated by, who. But anyhow, that's beyond the point. But the movie basically, long story short, the movie basically has many layers, but the main layer of that movie is, I guess you can say, going against the status quo, basically. Going against the grain. In all of that movie, it went against the grain. I mean, even the way they did the movie, the camera angles of the movie, the budget of the movie, everything went against like the grain. The movie was made in 1988. I wasn't even thought of then, but I played catch up and then I saw it. But anyhow, that movie, I want to say that movie like just got me thinking. Like I was thinking a lot of the time, after watching it, and I just recently watched it again. And on a side note, I will say that I don't want them to do a live action movie of that. They need to leave that alone. They need to just like shelf that project. Don't try to ruin something that's good. And I don't think it would translate to well live action. Now, with Akira, uh, there's a lot of things that like I dissected from that movie that, you know, make me think of like my life, you know, and the life as being an immigrant here in the United States, you know. Now, the first thing is that, you know, due to the ICE raids, you know, that they're doing, you know, this is kind of parallel with how corrupted those police were in the Akira movie. You know, those were very corrupted. I mean, they did a lot of corrupt crap in that movie. And, you know, another thing is with that, with the, you know, with the terms that they use for, I want to say that they use for undocumented immigrants, you know, one of the terms is illegal alien, right? And in that movie, I kid you not, because you know, there were these kids, you know, there were these like kids who had special abilities, you know, psychic abilities, and they kind of were alienated, and they were like aliens basically, because what they would do is they would snatch them up, you know, and just keep them somewhere locked away, you know, away from society basically, you know. And sure enough, you see this played out. You know, you see all these immigrants, you know, getting rounded up and just being out of society, man. Another thing that can be taken from the Akira movie, one of the other things that I took from it is that, you know, the title Akira is actually a character of the movie. But in that movie, that character is basically empty. And what I mean by that is just like he's empty. He's just a little boy basically. But on his insides it's empty, you know. Like you can't like really see anything. And so what I take from that is that, you know, when living in this climate, you know, I mean, the Akira didn't even show any emotions basically. Living in this heightened climate that we're living in, like this social climate that we're here in right now, you kind of have to be like that, you know, in order to kind of like stay safe and keep on doing what you have to do. You kind of have to have that kind of, you know, way about yourself, you know. And one thing is too about Akira that I take from it too is, you know, politics is always going to be corrupt, and there's also going to be, like, I want to say, corrupt bureaucracies in politics, and that was what's going on. What was going on there is, you know, you have politicians trying to have, you know, take bribes, trying to just gain control by any means necessary, even if those means were unethical. And sure enough, we're living in a time right now, that's what we see what's going on with this current, like, president right now. You know, he's not my president, I'll say that much. You know, I have nothing to do with him. You know, I have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with any of his things, you know. It's just the only thing that I'm doing now is just watching my shoulder more and more, because, you know, he told cops to escalate, you know. He told ICE to escalate, to get more violent. Those were his words. You know, he didn't speak out against the violence. He actually encouraged it more. So that's why that I'm always watching my back, you know. So, you know, and again, It goes back to the corrupted politicians. It goes back to, you know, how people use positions to fulfill their own desires while not fulfilling the desires or helping the desires of the people who they say they represent. But he doesn't represent me, so I'm just putting that out there for the 110th time. He does not represent me. You know, it's funny because, like, I've been here a long time. You know, I've been in the United States for a long time. It's funny because, like, you know, Americans will, this is what's funny about Americans. Americans don't want you to be American if you're an immigrant, right? But they also don't want you to have a strong affinity for your culture. They also don't want you to be an individual who embraces his culture. You know, they don't want that either. So they'll group you as an American when that's the case. So what happened is, one incident, you know, I had my whatchamacallit, I was wearing my, I think I was wearing I'm trying to remember, man. But I was just wearing something that basically didn't gel well with the Americans. And they're like, you're in this country. You're an American now. You need some dude came up to me sideways like that. And he was like, you need to throw that away. You need to throw these things away. So I just showed him my passport and I just showed him my African passport. And I just said, sorry, dude, try again, you know? And that made him even more mad, you know. I know that to be the case, that they don't like to see someone who has dignity for themselves, or who wants to just like have his own culture, who wants to eat his own food, who wants to, like, you know, do his own thing. You know what I mean? But anyhow, that leads to another thing about what I got from Akira. Sometimes, like, and I'm not saying doing it violently, I'm not saying that at all, but sometimes you have to find like-minded people and, like, really gel with them and build something grassroots. You know, basically what I'm saying is take matters into your own hand. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying you necessarily have to do it like how they did it in the movie. But when you look at Kaneda is another main character in the movie. Kaneda, what he was is he was like, he had a biker clique, you know, and they were pretty much like-minded people, you know. If you wanted to think about it, you know, they were like, they were the rebels of society in that movie. You know, they didn't like, how should I say, they didn't conform, you know, to what was going on. They didn't conform to, like, being, you know, quote unquote, you know, sheep. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I got from it too. And, like, I know it's a fictional character, you know, but I see myself in Kaneda, you know, because, you know, even just like their style of dress was just different from the rest of the society. And I'm not saying that it was like overly provocative or overly crazy, but, you know, even my mode of dress is like not the same as like a lot of people. Like, you know, for one, like, most of my clothes I've purchased from like black businesses, you know. For two, most of my clothes have people that this country hates on it, like Thomas Sankara, like Amilcar Cabral, like Che Guevara, like Fidel Castro, like Hugo Chavez. Maybe one day I'll do like a closet breakdown and just show, like, you know, what kind of outfits I put together, you know. Um, and so, yeah, man, um, that's the one thing about Akira that, you know, it kind of teaches you some things if you really let it. Like, it teaches you that you kind of have to be grassroots to find solutions to your problem. Because if you wait for these politicians to try to find solutions to your problems, good luck, you know? So that's what I like about, like, Canada. You know, they didn't wait for the corrupt politicians to find ways to solve their problems. They took matters into their own hands, you know. The one thing too about which one call it about Akira, and I'll end on this note on this movie. And this is like twofold. This is twofold. Too much power is basically definitely going to lead you to self-destruction. You know, no matter who you are, you know, it's going to lead you to, like, collapse, basically. You know, it's just the natural order of things, you know. If you have too much power, it's just going to lead you to basically fall by the wayside and, like, destroy yourself. And, you know, I kind of believe, like, it's happening to Donald Trump in a way. You know, although I do believe he will get reelected, I kind of see that happening. But I see just in the future him, like, trying to usurp so much power that it gets to his head and that he eventually, like, basically collapse, like, literally. You know, for those of you guys don't know, this is a spoiler, but one of the characters in the movie, Tetsuo, his name is Tetsuo. What happened with him is he had so much power, you know, he had so much, like, abilities, you know, and so what they did, the thing is, well, let's just give a little bit of a history about it. What happened with Tetsuo is, and this is a spoiler, what happened with Tetsuo is that he actually got in a motorcycle accident. Well, what happened is they sensed his power so much that they kidnapped him, basically. The government kidnapped him. And they did all kinds of things with him, you know? Like, they just basically did so many things that made him out to be what he can be. And he was on so many meds that, you know, he needed those meds to contain those powers that he had. You know, and I mean, this is kind of parallel to what this country is doing. Like they're snatching up people. Not only are they deporting the people, but they're also harvesting their organs as well. You know, I hate to say this. This is candid about. I never told a lot of people this, but one of my family friends, he's like a distant, I guess you can call him uncle. You know, I'll just leave his name at that. But, you know, when he was coming back from Guinea, you know, they detained him. You know, the United States detained him and they kept him in ICE. And, you know, unfortunately they killed him. And, you know, when the autopsy was done, his organs were missing. You know, so that's what I'm saying. That's what they're doing in this country. So in a way, unfortunately, there's a lot of Tetsuos, you know, in this country. But anyhow, back to the power thing. What happened with Tetsuo is, you know, he escaped where he was, you know. But unfortunately for him, he needed those medications to contain his power. But because of his power being too great, he just, like, turned into this big old, like, blob, basically. And basically, he couldn't contain himself. So, boom, that was it. That was all she wrote. You know, and he just like pretty much messed up people around him too, in that situation. It's crazy because if you look at the blob of Tetsuo, he kind of favors Donald Trump right now. Donald Trump does look like a kind of like a blob. He like looks like just basically a red piece of like chewed gum, basically. But yeah, man, that movie, basically, to sum up this video, that movie Akira basically sums up like grassroots, sums up political corruption, sums up police corruption, and basically sums up what's occurring in this country right now. So if you haven't watched the movie, I recommend that you watch that movie. Some people say it's boring, but just watch it attentively. Let the story unfold and see and just see it for yourself and see if you can pick up any parallels with what's happening right now in this country that are in that movie. And maybe perhaps since I've started it, maybe perhaps I'll make this a weekly thing where I will do a breakdown of an anime, and the messages behind that anime. I'm pretty sure the maker of Akira inadvertently did these things, but he probably didn't know, or let's just say they didn't know, that it would be relevant today, But anyhow, guys, that's all I got. Leave your thoughts and leave your comments. Let me know if you think I'm reaching, or let me know if you think I have a point, And like and subscribe. If you're an anime head, let's connect. Let's do a stream together. I'm open to that. Let's link up. I know I'm not the only African anime head, but Fula signing out. Njara.